Everybody, I am here with Sammy McDowell of Sammy's Avenue Eatery in North Minneapolis. Sammy, how you doing?
I am well. All is well today. I'm doing excellent.
Well, good, good. Thanks for joining us. I am, and if you've been following me for a little bit, I've been interviewing Christian entrepreneurs, leaders across the nation, actually. And seeing what their journey was in becoming who they were to become and discovering their purpose. It's March 1st. I will be launching the book Obscured, uh, a man's a man's journey to discovering his purpose. I'm excited about that book. But what I find is that a lot of individuals are in a stuck place. They're up and coming. They're inspiring. They have a lot of talent. And God is pulling the covers off of these individuals. They've been hidden for so long, and now is the time to launch. Now is the time to move forward with their idea. So I'm talking to individuals that have moved forward with their idea, that they've heard from God, the opportunity opened, the door opened up. And Sammy, you're one of those individuals.
Well, thank you.
I'm excited to talk to you about your journey. Why don't you tell us a little, give us a brief overview of who you are and what you do?
Well, I'm Sammy McDowell. I am, um, you know, I would say not a native to North Minneapolis, but I've been in North Minneapolis. I went to school in North Minneapolis, raised in South Minneapolis mostly. So I am just a food entrepreneur. I like to. I've always been in the food business for many years, and at some point, I think when things become uncomfortable and boring, and and God moved me from being in that situation of comfortability to really launching out into the deep, which is I feel like where I was about 8 years ago, when God pushed me into that uncomfortable space of um, doing my own thing, or doing what He kind of my purpose, So I believe about 8 years ago is when I started to get into that place of purpose, because before then I was just doing the normal, have a job, go to work, take care of somebody else's things, and that whole thing. So, and I would say, yeah, it has been about 8 years ago that God put me in the position of fulfilling my purpose, which was a super uncomfortable space to be in, not knowing where I was going to get my paycheck, and not knowing how I was gonna eat, and how I was gonna live, and all those things. But I dared to trust God, and I'm here today. After all that, so I'm pretty happy and excited that I will actually listen and obey the voice of the Lord.
Wow, wow, that's amazing. So you're operating Sammy's Avenue Eatery. That's your brand. You have a restaurant location. You
Yeah.
have a second one, right? You opened up a second location.
We actually have a second one on the way. It's we're still working on a few technical things on that, but
Okay.
we're actually in the process of that one. So hopefully by spring, summer, we'll have that one open and ready to go.
Okay. And then you're working on a lot of different things. It's an amazing story. I've known you for a while, and I'm surprised it's been 8 years already. So it's time has really flew. But
Yeah,
let's
it's been 8 years as a entrepreneur. 2 years of that time was spent as doing catering, my own catering business, and
right.
then the 6 years have been with the eatery.
Yeah,
So 8 years in total.
yeah, yeah. Let's back up a little bit and go back to the beginning. When
Okay.
you started with the catering business, how did you know? How did you discover that you were called to that area, and that this was that purpose awakening in your life? How did you know that this door of opportunity is open and you should stop doing what you were doing and become this full-time entrepreneur?
It really was a very difficult decision to hear. I heard God, vividly for maybe 2 years prior to me leaving my job. Just kind of coaxing me out, and I couldn't wrap my brain around it because I was used to getting a paycheck every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I was used to, my income being a certain thing, and I wasn't used to suffering through anything like, not having enough. So that voice became more silent, as I thought about, how am I going to take care of myself and all those things. Um, but the more and more I stayed on the job, I got more depressed. I got, just in a place of unfulfillment. I just didn't feel fulfilled at all. I didn't feel like I was going anywhere. Even though they were promoting me on my job and giving me raises and all that stuff, I still felt like I wasn't going anywhere. It wasn't, it wasn't satisfying to me because I wasn't listening to God, who, because God wanted me to have something else. He wanted me to do something else. And I thought I was fine. I was doing well, thought I was fine. So it wasn't until I really, I think, got super depressed being on this job, that I finally said, God, like really whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. So, which meant leaving that job, leaving my job of 10 years and making that move to doing my own thing, because my passion has always been to in the food. I have other gifts and stuff, and people always, sometimes those things seem big to other people, and they're like, oh, you're this or you're that. But I was like, I've always been in the entertainment business. I always been, that's what I feel like my gifting is, in food and entertainment, entertaining. So I was like, I need to make some moves. So I did it, and it wasn't easy. It definitely wasn't easy to live off my savings until I cultivated this business. It was very difficult, very difficult. And even during that time, I suffered through depression, finding my way through the entrepreneur way once I gave up everything. And but I didn't know what I was doing or how I was doing what I was doing. So, I gave up a stable environment to go to an unstable environment. So
Well, let's talk a little bit about that, because I think that's the biggest hurdle that startup entrepreneurs face, is that first few years before you start making some real money, is how do you sustain? And so let's talk about some of your personal challenges. You mentioned because you didn't have $1 million in the bank, you did.
Oh no.
You were learning on the fly. So what were some of the personal challenges that you faced in the beginning, and how did you overcome them?
I think a lot of as I look back on it, a lot of the personal challenges came because I wasn't listening to God. I was so into my own self, my own self-doubt, my depression, and I wasn't listening to God. So as I look back on it, it's like, if you would have just listened to God, and just did what he wanted you to do the first time, you wouldn't have to suffer through those things. But I did go through a bout of not having enough, or just being worried about not having enough to pay my bills and not having enough to sustain my life. And so those things, those different challenges, and really getting the energy to get up and push myself. Because at this point, I'm my own brand. I'm my own, whatever I do is what's going to move the company, what's going to move the business. So when you're so depressed, you don't want to move. It's like, how are you going to move the company? How are you going to move? So it's all about trusting God. And I'm learning this as I get older, to trust God the first time when he tells you to do something, and trust him wholeheartedly, and not have that glimmer of doubt. So at this point in my life, I'm flourishing in that, trusting God completely. But then I wasn't, so I did suffer through being in a little debt, and finances not matching up. Work wasn't coming in like I wanted to. People didn't know about me. They didn't know, because in this industry that I'm in, people have to trust you. they don't want to just, go buy anything. They have to trust you. So it was like building that reputation and all that stuff. That some people think when you open a restaurant, people are just going to come.
Yeah.
They're not just going to come just on, so you have to kind of work your way up to that point and get yourself to a space where you can actually flourish in, the gifting that you have. So it took a while for me to get there. So during that time, not listening to God right away, I think I suffered more on the beginning because I didn't trust God and didn't trust what He said the first time.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and so that when I wrote the book Absurd, so absurd is it means to be wildly illogical, wildly unreasonable, wildly inappropriate. And the concept of the book is in reference to purpose, is that we will get ideas. God will begin to speak to us about ideas that seem illogical. It seems inappropriate. It seems like it's unreasonable. And as you were talking, when you said you didn't listen to God, a lot of times we do that because it seems absurd. Like if I need to work in order to produce, to pay my bills, and now you have me starting a new venture that's not making money in the beginning, nobody knows my name, that seems absurd. And a lot of times the way that absurdity. But I like what you said. You said you begin to trust God, and when He began to speak to you, these ideas begin to come into your mind, and you begin to trust Him. Can you just talk a little bit about what that looks like when it seems in your environment and reality seems one way, and the ideas in your mind are telling you to do something completely opposite than the normal? What does that look like? What does that trust look like? How are you preparing to move forward with an idea that seems absurd to individuals that you may mention it to? And they say, why would you do that?
Yeah, I got a lot of even from this store, a lot of people, the first store we opened, a lot of folks said, God reminded me, because just to back up a little bit, this shop that we have now was a vision that I had when I was 19 years old, and God put this vision in my. I wrote this whole vision down when I was 19 years old, and I still have it right now. And I totally forgot about it. Totally forgot about it because I was working into the crust of things, and I totally forgot about it.
Yeah.
So by the time I was ready to quit my job, and I was actually thinking I was going to do a restaurant, like a full service restaurant, and God reminded me of, because I wrote a plan for that one as well, and God reminded me of, this is the first thing that you ask for. This is what you ask for first. So I'm doing what you asked me to do the first time, so that this cafe came along, and this was kind of the first draft, if you will, of what God had what I already planned out years ago, and I totally forgot about it. So just having the faith to get to that, to walk through that door and to actually do that, this business was to me hard. And people were telling me, to get to your point, people were telling me, nobody's gonna want sandwiches in North Minneapolis. They're not gonna want, soup. They want chicken. They want, they want this food that they're used to eating. They don't want, what you're selling. It seems, like you said, absurd. What are you doing?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, this is what, me and God had a plan to do. So this is what we're gonna do. Because honestly, when the first day I got in there, I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know what I was going to sell. I didn't know how I was going to do it.
Wow.
I literally, after everything was said and done, I literally had $300 to my name. After the store, I got the store. I only had $300 to put supplies in the store, hire employees, and all this stuff. So it seemed like, what are you doing? Like, you don't even have We don't even have enough to really get started here.
Yeah.
So it was a day, it was a day to day um, struggle for me. Like every day, I would go to the store and get more supplies, and we would make a little money. And I would go get more supplies. And for 2 or 3 weeks, I was at the store every day, to get things going and get things going. So that first venture was just like wow, but God got me through that phase, and 6 years later, we're on to the second, trying to open up the second store, which has been hurdle after hurdle. I'm telling you, it's just I didn't even think it was going to be this difficult.
Yeah.
I honestly didn't want to do it. Like I didn't in my mind. I'm good. I don't want to do another store, but it's because God has a vision for my life, and this is part of my purpose being fulfilled. And the more and more people come to me and say, Sammy, this is absurd. You should really rethink this.
Yeah.
This doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
The numbers just don't add up, and this doesn't add up, and I don't know if this is a good idea.
Yeah.
But God told me to do it. So at this point in my life, I'm trusting God beyond the barriers that are in front of me. I can't look at people or listen to them when it comes to my relationship with God and what He wants done. So every time they come to me, I was like, we're going forward. We're going forward. We're going forward. So this second store is even a challenge beyond me. It's way beyond me. So I am just really trusting God that He'll fulfill the purpose that He has for my life. He'll do what He needs to do, and
Wow.
I'm gonna just honestly sit back and allow Him to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if I answered your question or not.
You did. That was good. That was good because it's and I could identify it is a lot of time the weight of responsibility, the weight of the vision makes a lot of people turn around and say, nope, I'm not going to do it. So I can appreciate you moving forward with an idea, even when it seems daunting. And that's something, I know a lot of listeners are going to be able to identify with you when you said that you opened up the store day one and you only had $300 to your name. And it probably is going to cost you a couple $100 a day just with supplies and getting different things in the stores, not even to think about employees and paying them and making payroll. That is a response, and it can make individuals turn away. I think about Moses leading Israel, the Exodus, leading Israel out of Egypt. And God says, I could have taken you a shorter way, but you would have turned around once you saw war. And there's a thing about warfare when you start to see the struggle or start to experience the struggle that will force you to turn around, or you will have a propensity to turn around if you don't put your trust in a power greater than yourself. That's
Absolutely.
by that. So when you talk about your purpose, you're operating in it. You're moving effectively. You're making progress. You're seeing fruit. You mentioned that the vision happened when you were 19. Was it? And then it was years later before your first store opened up and you left your job. Was it obvious to you that this is the route I'm going to take, or is this something that one day the door just opened up and that you stumbled upon it? How did you come to that recognition about this is purpose? This is what my life was built for. I'm going this way. Was it obvious, or how did you stumble upon it?
It was it was honestly God speaking to me on a continuous basis, even in service. I remember one day leaving church, and the pastor, Bishop, had spoke, and I believe Donnie spoke that day, and I didn't hear a word he was saying because God was speaking to me throughout the whole service about what was going on with me, and He was just speaking to me, and I remember leaving out the back doors of the sanctuary, and God just kept talking to me about doing this store and doing this restaurant or whatever, and I was like, God, but I kept saying I don't have the money. I don't have I don't have I don't have what I need to do it, and it just kept being in my head. At this time, I think I was still on my job, and the Holy Ghost just spoke to me. It was like, you have to fund your own vision. You can fund your own vision. And I was like, it just frustrated me so much. And I remember I was just kind of in a daze, and people were saying hi to me or whatever, and I was just like, yeah, what, like, hey, whatever. And then I got to the back of the sanctuary doors, and I think the Lord just kept speaking to me like, fund your own vision. And when I got to the back of the doors, and I just was like, how? Just like, and I know people were looking at me like, what, is he crazy? Like,
Wow.
but I was having this conversation with God that nobody else really knew that I was having.
Yeah.
And in the Holy Ghost, as soon as I asked him how, he showed me a vision of how. So before we opened the first restaurant, I started doing dinner parties. I don't know if you remember that. That was a while ago. And I started doing dinner parties. I started at my friend Michelle's house. Then I did a couple at the Urban League. And it still wasn't enough to really fund what I needed. So, but God, I think in that, God was showing me that you have to get up and do something. I'll provide what you need because you can't do it, but I need you to get up and do something. Like, because I wasn't doing anything to like cultivate the vision I wasn't doing anything. And I think in that, God was just showing me like, you need to get up and you need to be about creating avenues for doors to be open. Like, you need to get up and do something. Talk to people about what you're trying to do, and get up and promote yourself, and be about this whole thing. So I started doing these dinner parties. Literally months later, the door opened for me to have that cafe up the street that I have now. After I started doing my part, and I still wasn't making enough money to really afford what I needed to for that shop, but God was just like, if you start, I'll finish. Like, I need you to start. I need you to get up and do something. I need you to get up and motivate yourself, encourage yourself and me, and get up and start doing something. If this is the vision I gave you, I need you to do something, because he does the big stuff, but we have to have the faith, to get up and do so. And it was embarrassing. I was like, I don't really want to ask people for money to come eat and do that. I don't really want to do that, So, it's not about, I have to get over my timidness, my not sure of myself, not sure if people are gonna like my food, not sure if people are gonna accept me, and all this stuff, And I have to get over all that, and just float in what I know was my gifting, And once I did that, I think things start to flow more, and I started being more sure about the gift that God has given me, So he gave us the gift, and usually people's gift is what's gonna make them, whatever money or whatever they need in life. If you operate in your gifting, a lot of times we don't operate in our gifting, so that causes problems. But when you operate in the gift that God has given you or that He's blessed you with, usually that's why this seems effortless. The shop seems now, it's like, because and people see me and they feel like they can duplicate what I'm doing, but I'm gifted to do this.
Right.
I'm not. It's not. I don't. I did have to work hard to get to where I'm at. So don't get me wrong, but every day it's it flows because it's what I'm. It's part of my purpose and it's part of my destiny to be where I'm at. But Tim, I am like you. I will go ramble forever, so you got to stop me.
No, that's good. I mean, this is good because
I will ramble.
What most people think of when they hear an absurd idea, when they hear purpose calling, they expect it to drop in their lap. They don't.
Oh yeah. I did.
Yeah, like God said it, so He's going to bring it to pass. It's going to drop in my lap. And they don't realize the self-development that takes place where God begins to prune. He gets get rid of the self-doubt, the self-sabotaging, the procrastination, the all of these things that prohibit us from moving into greatness. And so I appreciate what you're saying about taking the responsibility. And I just think about so many individuals that can be have a lot of potential, could be so much further, but they're sitting down, just waiting for it to drop in my
Yeah.
lap, open door, money in the mail, and all those things are good if it happens. But there's a responsibility for you to get up and start to put in the work. And as you're doing
Absolutely.
that, the doors begin to open up and things begin to happen. It don't happen until you start moving, until you start.
Absolutely.
It's that
It,
faith without works is dead. There's some work that has to
hmm
go along and accompany your faith. And it's when you're talking about, as you're talking, so many ideas are coming. So I'm just love listening to and love picking your brain. It's when with faith, you can tell somebody's faith level based on what they do, based on their action.
hmm
And there is a place where people want to be comfortable. It's a normal thing where you want to have some harmony in your life. You want to be comfortable, and you don't want to always be in warfare. But
Yeah.
faith will put you in uncomfortable positions. If
Every time.
if you're timid, it's going to put you in a place where it's going to challenge you, that timid place. If you're prideful,
hmm
it's going to put you in a place where it's going to test your humility. It's going to make you become. It's going to stretch you to become something that God has in His mind for you to become, that you are fighting up against. It's
hmm
when Jesus encountered Paul on his way to Damascus. He said, "Paul, it's hard to kick against the pricks. It's hard to kick against, go against what God is purposed in your life, and
Yeah.
you become a different man. You become a different woman based on where God wants you to go." So you can keep talking out, and I'll listen. But for the sake of the interview, I'll keep the questions coming. So how did you you talked a little bit about how you got started and stepping out, talking to individuals. Can you dive in a little deeper into that start piece? You're at the back door of the sanctuary. You're having this conversation with God, and He gives you the blueprint. Can you just talk a little bit about that journey of how you started and how you started implementing the plan? What was that next couple of weeks look like after you said it's time to go?
The next couple of weeks after that, I literally talked to my friend about it, and I knew my house wasn't going to be big enough for what God had put in my mind, 50 people to come to this dinner party or whatever. So I asked her about it. She said, "Oh, no problem, sure, whatever you need." We did two dinner parties at her house. After that, we just got to capacity and we needed to move it. So I went to the Urban League and I talked to those guys about, they're like, "Oh, well, you can't charge anybody, but you can ask for a donation. So I said, "Okay, we can do it that way." They had said they wanted a down payment, and I said, "Sure." How much, and they told me what it was, and I said, "Okay, well, I'll just let them keep the down payment continually because I'm gonna do it every month."
Yeah.
So, and it made good. God was just making a way. He opened the door because people had told me too, it's so hard to get in the Urban League. They got so much going on, and they got so many rules and this and that. But when I walked in, the person at the front desk, I knew them personally. So God was just making a way. And when I told them what I was doing and they were like, "Absolutely, don't worry about it. I got you. Don't worry about it." So that went flawless. I think I only had to do it 2 months though before the door opened for the cafe. And the cafe, believe it or not, that story is pretty incredible within itself. Cortland actually made the call after he seen the number in the window, because I was procrastinating. I was like, "Oh, I don't want to call because that's not really what I want. I want a full restaurant, this and that." So Cortland was like, "I'll just make the appointment for you anyway.
Yeah.
And, you can talk to the guy and see what's up, and if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, it doesn't." So I went and talked to the guy just thinking, it is what it is. I don't, I don't have all the money to get in here anyway, so probably won't work.
Yeah.
So I went and talked to the guy, told him about my life, my history of managing restaurants and all this stuff. And he said, and told me how much he needed for me to get in there. And I was like, I don't have that. So, I ain't worried about it. So at this point, I'm just like, whatever, God, at this point, because I don't have the money to get in. I don't have, whatever he's talking about. So I'm just going to go talk to him just for general purposes.
Yeah.
So I did that, and he told me, yeah, there's like 5 other people trying to get it. So, and I was like, that's cool, whatever, if they have what it takes, if they have the whatever, go ahead and give it to them.
Yeah.
And he calls me back, and he's like, well, I really like you, Sammy, and you have so much experience, and I don't want to keep turning over tenants because they don't know what they're doing.
Right.
I would rather have somebody in there who knows what they're doing, so I can continuously have a tenant. And I was like, well, that's good and all, but I don't have what you're asking for. So just take me off the board, take me off. I don't want to, waste your time.
Wow.
So he was like, okay, he called me back again the next day. He was like, what can you do? And I was like, well, I can't do nothing. I ain't gonna lie to you. I was at this point, I'm just like, I don't even care. I'm not gonna lie, I ain't got nothing to lose. I was like, dude, to be honest with you, I have nothing to give you right now. So that was the God honest truth.
Yeah.
So I said, he's like, well, okay. And he was like, you can't even come up with like the last month. I was like, I promise you, I don't got nothing to give you, nothing. So we finally came up with a number, and I honestly didn't have that even.
Wow.
So he said, well, if you can come up with X, Y, and Z, we can go ahead and make this happen. And I said, okay, I'll see what I can do, So I literally was like, I don't got this money. Let me so I asked God, I was like, God, what, and he immediately said to me, Tovaz. Talk to Tovaz. She has the money.
Wow.
And I said, so I called her. At this point, I had nothing to lose. I called Tovaz and her husband, and I said, God said y'all got this money for me, or whatever. And Tovaz said, what? I was like, yep. God said you got this money for me, so I need this money about y'all, And she was like, okay, well, I need to talk to my husband because this money I was supposed to go shopping with. And he gave me this money to go shopping. Her husband gave her the exact amount to go shopping with.
Wow.
And she talked to her husband and asked him if it was okay to give it to me. And he said, yeah. And they gave it to me.
Wow.
So that was like my first month's rent or whatever.
Yeah.
And so that's how we honestly got into place. And I said to him, guys can give me the money. I'll give it back to you next month. It's not a big deal. And so she did. They gave it to me, got into place. I gave them the money back the next month. And that's honestly how I got into place, just walking through this cycle of things. And then when it was all said and done, like I told you, I had the $300
Yeah. Yeah.
So the way it all fell into place was like a miracle within itself. It was like God orchestrating this whole thing, so I have no other really choice but to trust God at this point, because things are just falling into place like that. And even after the $300, I was just making it. I maybe 2 months later I got an employee, so I had to pay the employee, and we were just cycling through. But the bills were just way more than what I thought. Because I've always managed restaurants, but I've never owned a restaurant.
Yeah.
So I didn't know about insurance and having to pay the light and the gas bill and having to pay the rent and all this unemployment insurance and taxes. And I'm just like, what is this stuff? So learning all this, it's more bills than you actually have funds coming in. It's like, this is like, I wasn't prepared for all that. And it's like, you have to pay this. And people were sending me stuff from the IRS, like, you got to do this. And I'm like, what? You know, I was like, I don't even have any money yet. What are y'all talking about? But so, you know, just learning that whole process and really got into a whole nother state of depression in
Mm.
this whole 8 month, the first 8 months I was there,
Yeah.
and just trying to struggle and manage these bills and do all this stuff to keep the store open and do all this. And I think the 8th month is when I remember these timelines vividly. God was I literally prayed and I said, God, this is too much.
Mm.
I was like, if this is a blessing from you, I shouldn't be struggling like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, you said, you know, that your is I'm supposed to be rich and add no sorrow to it.
Yeah.
I was like, I feel like if this is a blessing of the Lord, that's supposed to be added rich and add no sorrow. I was like, I'm supposed to be struggling like this.
Yeah. Right.
And it was like the Holy Ghost spoke to me, was like, you have to let me lead. Like, you have to let me lead. Because you're trying to pay the bills, you're trying to do this, and you're trying to do this. And when I tell you I let go, as the song says, and let God for real,
Yeah.
I say you, and I tell people all the time now, if God bless you with something, if he blessed you with it, he's going to sustain it for you.
Wow.
And that's my personal testimony now. I have that testimony now. If he blesses you with something, he's going to sustain it, because that is not his deal to bless you with something. If God blessed you with it, he's going to make sure that you keep it and that it's sustained well. So after that, God was like, all I need you to do is work here diligently, and I need you to put a smile on your face, and I need you to be, you know, a good steward over what I've blessed you with.
Wow.
I got the rest. I got this. I never asked you to do this.
Yeah.
I got this. I just need you to show up and be, you know. And I was like, oh, okay. So, so after that moment, I promise you, we started getting catering. I don't even know who these people were. Like, they started calling me and saying, I heard about your little cafe. We want to know if you can do a catering order. Can you handle 100 people? I was like, sure. I can do it. You know, they were like, oh,
Wow.
just from all over, you know, people started calling, and
Yeah.
we started having, you know, enough to sustain ourselves. And then we have, you know, enough to actually hire another person. And God was just started blessing, you know, and it was just like, when he blesses you with something, it's ours to take care of,
Yeah.
and it's ours to manage. But God, it's his. You know, it's not mine. I'll tell people that all the time. It's not mine. God has set me here to be an example
Yeah.
to people coming, you know, around me, and you know, so I can tell them about the goodness of God,
Right. Right.
not about how Sammy accomplished his goal. And God used me to do it, obviously,
Yeah.
but it's him that
Yeah.
we live and we move and we have our being. You know, it's not us. So when I realized that, you know, this is God's stuff, and I realized that now this is God's doing, this is God's stuff. Even the second store is God's doing. I don't necessarily want the second store. I don't necessarily want to do more. I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm not a fabulous person. I don't need all this, you know, stuff. You know, I'm okay as long as I got some jeans and a place to live, and you know,
Right.
and I can travel from time to time. I'm good. Like, I'm not a, you know, I'm not that person that needs everything. But God wants this
Yeah.
for His people, because He continuously tells me His will for me is for me to prosper and for me to be in good health.
Yeah.
So as long as I'm prospering and I'm maintaining my good health or getting better in health, you know, I'm in the will of God. So, so that's so because I was like, I don't want it, but God was like, I'm a prosperous God, so you have to have it.
Yeah.
So you have to have it. You have to have more. You have to keep pushing, because that's what life. This was what this life is about. You know, we can live in the goodness of the Lord, even on the earth, you know. So we just have to get our mindset around God. Always remember to put Him first, you know, and not to put Him on the sideline. Because I know every time I even attempt to put God on the sideline, that's when circumstances and challenges become tough, so tough and overwhelming, you
Right.
know. and it's all a mirage.
Yeah.
I'll tell people that's my new thing now. It's a mirage. It's not real.
Wow.
It's not real. So, but the devil will put mirages in front of you and make it seem like it's a real thing, and it's not a real thing. You
Wow.
are more. You're capable of doing everything that God has put on your heart to do. You're capable. You're capable, and you're well equipped. But the devil will set up mirages and put mirrors in front of you and different things like that to deceive you and to deceive your purpose and all those things. But you have to remember that God, once you get to God, God blocks those things,
Yeah.
and that's the difficult thing to do, is to keep that constant relationship with Christ prevalent in front of your face all the time. So that's my job, is to stay in relationship with God, and God really leads it's his vision, for us. Because some of the stuff that I'm doing now, I didn't even have a thought about it. I didn't even think about doing or being in the places that I'm being, or being asked to do the things that I've been doing these past couple of years. I didn't even think about this stuff. I wasn't trying to be no community leader, or it just wasn't my thing. I just want to be Sammy. I want to make a sandwich.
Yeah.
I want to make some soup, and I want to go home. But everything else that comes with that is God stuff.
And so the Bible talks about his ways being higher than our ways, his thoughts being higher than our thoughts. Is that what you mean when you talk about putting God first and taking your hands off of it? Because you mentioned that there's the scripture that says the blessing of the Lord maketh rich and adds no sorrow to it, but you're experiencing sorrow. You're experiencing depression. The weight of it is going. And so when you say you took your hands off of that, give us a tangible example of that? Does that mean you're not worrying about it? If God does it, you're okay with the outcome, you backing up and allowing God. Give us an example of putting God first and taking your hands off.
I think me taking my hands off of it is, even now, I can give you an example right now of I'm very on hands. I like to protect those things that God has given me.
Yeah.
So I'm very on hands. Like me sitting here now and talking to you in my house and not working today is taking my hands off of it and allowing God, because I am a micromanager.
Yeah.
I can be a micromanager. Even if I wasn't working today, for the first maybe 3 or 4 years, I would be in the shop. Even if I had employees doing but I have learned to allow, because there's more that needs to be done.
Yeah.
And I can't be. Sometimes I think when we get to a certain level and God has blessed us to a certain point, we want to just be on top of it and do whatever. But God sends people, and he sends people to help you. And sometimes we push the help away because we're so protective of that little entity that God has given us. But God is, like we just said, his ways and his thoughts are higher than ours. He has more for me.
Yeah.
God has way more for me. So I can't be stuck in that space and still do everything that God has for me, because there's more to come. So me allowing God to be God and allowing the people who he placed to trust them enough to do what they have to be doing while I'm away, getting more from God and more of the vision that God has for me, is to me allowing God to be God and to trusting that they'll take care of what they need to take care of while I'm away, and being able to, get to God to figure out the next phase of things, because it's so, and I don't know if people would understand this, but it's so hard to let go once you've built something. It's so hard to take your hands off of it and to say, okay, because it feels like a labor of love.
Right.
But it was all God. It was God's thing. And even when I had to let go before, about even at that 8 months mark, it was almost like I just said, God, it's almost like I gotta joyous spirit. I got joy. I began to trust God. I began to pray. I began to seek God and just get joy over being in the present moment. In the
Yeah.
moment I was in, every moment I was in, I began to give God praise and thank Him for what I had, for
Right.
what He has given me. And that was the beginning of letting go of the concerns. Because when you indulge in God, you don't feel the concern of what's going on around you. Even though there was a tax bill coming and this and that was happening, the joy I got when I was in the presence of God allowed me to let go of some of those things. So even God was preparing me because a year and a half later, I had got backed up on taxes and I owed like $20,000.
Mm. Wow.
But God had taught me in that 8 month period to let go and to allow Him to be God.
Yeah.
So when that time came around, I totally trusted God. I actually put the bill to the side. I didn't even they were calling me. I put the bill to the side and was like, it is what it is. God said this is His stuff. He's
Yeah.
gonna provide.
Yeah.
He's gonna provide. I'm not gonna worry about it.
Yeah.
Comcast calls me and says, we have this contest. I don't know if you heard about it, but can you please, they said, can you please enter the contest? I said, please. Okay.
Wow.
I said, they called me.
Wow.
This contest was online. Everybody's supposed to go online and do it. They called me and they said, can you please enter it? Because you're a small business that we work with and we want you to enter the contest. I
Wow.
said, sure, I'll enter the contest. I didn't know anything about what was going on. I said, sure. So we entered the contest. Long story short, um, people had to vote. And I don't know if you remember that when I was having people vote for me and all that.
No.
And we ended up winning the contest.
Yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
The tax bill was $22,000. My winnings from Comcast was $25,000.
Oh wow. Wow.
So I said, okay, there's the tax bill. So I said, okay, God is showing me little by little, to trust Him and
Yeah.
to like move in faith and faith. So it's really having joy in the moment of God, because knowing that because God's been showing me even this further down the line time,
Yeah.
we have to really and it's so hard once we know so much
Yeah.
to trust God. It's hard to trust God the more you know. And God has been showing me to not know so much
Yeah.
and not to, because the stuff that I know is not nothing compared to what God knows. He's
Yeah.
been here, He's done it, He made whatever it is, He thought about whatever the thought is. So He's showing me to stop, to reverse the things that I know, and to stop knowing so much that I don't have the ability to trust Him with my whole heart.
That's
Because
the
if you know so much, you know that red is red. So
yeah.
you red is red. Red is red. What are you talking about? Red is red.
Yeah.
And God is like, I need you to look through me, because when you look through me, you see things totally different.
Yeah.
You'll see things on a whole different spectrum. And to really trust God, because I know a lot. I've been managing restaurants for 20 plus years. So I knew a lot about technical things. I knew a lot. And God was like, I need you to unlearn and not, you
Yeah.
know, just regurgitate everything you know so I can fill you up with the purpose and the destiny that I have for your life.
Yeah.
So, and I was like, that is like, wow, he was like, you know too much. Stop answering questions so fast. Stop, giving yeses to things I want to know to. Stop, he was like, you have to listen to me and let me, and be like a child almost, you
That
know.
that is good.
Yeah. So,
It's when you talking. This is really good. Good stuff. The A lot of people have it in their mind. And I know I did for a while. Is being a good steward means paying all your bills on time and being managing precisely and micromanaging and making sure everything is in place. And that is not what being a good steward is. Being a good steward, as you're talking about, is managing the blessing. That you can do what you can do, and if things come up that you can't take care of, in your power, you'll worry about it. And you mentioned the depression. And I have people wrote in from other interviews, and they said, I have so much on top of me that I'm so depressed and I'm so worried that it's hard for me to move forward. And when you operate in your own intelligence and your own power, those things can weigh on you. You get depressed and you try to figure out how to do it. But being a good steward is part of that is managing your faith. We'll manage
Mm-hmm.
the stuff, but we won't manage the faith. We won't manage the hope, the expectation of what God is able to do. And
Yeah.
what that does is it puts God out of the picture to where he's
Mm-hmm.
no longer a factor and it's all dependent upon you. And that opens up the door for the depression. That opens up the door for the worry. But I like so much what you're talking about is managing your faith is allowing the joy of the Lord to come into your heart. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay to say that I don't have enough for this tax bill. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to stress. God gave it to me. He'll take care of it. And that seems absurd, but that's how you walk into your purpose. That's how you move by faith. So that is all good stuff, all good nuggets. I'm
Yeah.
just listen to you. Very encouraging stuff.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this question. You've been going for a while. You're opening up your second location, and you mentioned that it's not even my desire to have the second location. This is something that's a part of God's plan, and God's going to enlarge my territory. I'm fine with just making sandwiches. Tell me this: what compels you then regarding your purpose? What compels you if it's not if you just completely leave it to God? What compels you to keep moving forward, advancing, and keep expanding?
Well, I think I signed up for this journey when I said yes to God some years ago. I signed up for this journey, and I'm staying true to the journey that I signed up with God when I say yes to Him. And when you say yes to God, yeah, it's a lot more. God. It's interesting to me, and I'm finding it very interesting to see how God is moving. As opposed to what Sammy would do, and Sammy would do. Obviously, God is putting all this stuff in my head, like, this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing this because, God is like my best friend, so we talk all the time. I used to wonder when they said, men should always pray and never cease. I was like, God, that seems like a lot. What you mean, like, we should always pray? Because, like, we busy, we doing stuff, we got stuff to. He was like, you should always be in communication with me. You should always be talking to me. We should be talking on a consistent basis. So the Lord showed me that. So now I always talk to God. I talk to God. I'm not on the floor rolling around in the sanctuary, doing all that. But I'm always asking God questions. If somebody comes to me and says something to me, I'm like, God, what do you think about that? Like, what is, so that constant communication with God and constant, and Him constantly filling me in on His desires for my life, and to it excites me. That's what keeps me going. That's what keeps me going. I know by nature I'm a hard worker, so I'm a constantly be going, and but it excites me to see the plans that God has for me. The things that He wants for me. It's exciting to see those things. So every time I go, even when I went to Africa and seen, the possibilities in other places, and God just broadened my horizons even then, just to open up. He's like, the earth is mine.
Yeah, yeah,
I ain't even think like that. I don't think like, oh my God, I could do something somewhere else. And I never thought about that, but that's God, when you allow Him to be the visionary, and and the goal setter and all this other stuff. We set goals and different things like that, and God will give us the desires of our heart. True enough,
yeah,
but it's to me, it's almost another space where you allow God to be that visionary, because He knows what you need to maximize the potential in your life. He
yeah,
knows that.
yeah,
So when you're yielded to God to let Him maximize your full potential, and that's kind of where I want to get to, that point where I allow God to move me into that, because He knows what will maximize my life. and what will maximize my impact on this earth. He knows what that is.
Yeah.
So I lean on him for those for that advice to do that thing, and I try to declutter every time. I he's been dealing with me lately about jobs. People talk about jobs and different. It's like we don't need jobs necessarily. People be like, "Oh, I got blessed with a new job."
Yeah, yeah.
In my mind, as an entrepreneur, you're thinking,
Yeah, yeah,
okay. And he's even been talking to me, dealing with me about blessings and the things of blessing, what we call as a blessing. We'll say, God bless me with a new car.
yeah,
Well, that new car has payments.
yeah.
And, is that, I was like, God, is that really a blessing? Like, I want to know, like, or he blessed, even with a new house, God blessed me with a new house. And I was like, God, but you're so much more. You're so big and you're so wide. I mean, you're so vast.
Yeah.
If you bless me with a new house, can it be paid for in full?
Paid for in full. It's the difference of being the head and not the tail, the lender.
Yeah, yeah.
And you do hear so many testimonies of people testifying about being the tail,
Yeah.
testifying about being the borrower, and contrary to the word of God. And God is so much more. The
So
limitation that
much.
we put on God is our limitations, not God's limitations. He does have the ability to make you the head. He does have the ability to make you a borrower. He can make you the bank. He can make you the blessor, and be the contributor of the blessing. It is in God's power if we believe that and walk it. And you're a living example of moving by faith, walking by faith, trusting in God. I believe that this interview is going to help a lot of individuals because
I hope so. It's not choppy.
no, it's not. It's not. It's good. They've been discounting. I'm in communication with them. I train a lot of individuals. All of last year, each month we taught on financial statements, how to read financial statements, how to believe God for more, how to walk as a millionaire, how to use streams of wealth that God has provided, how to keep your integrity and your character intact while
That's
you're
important.
faith, and a lot not allowing who you become. So I taught a lot of individuals on how to do that, and what they struggle with is saying, "Well, I don't have the education, I don't have the background, I don't have a network, I don't have this, I don't have that." So, well, you have God though. You have the maker, the creator of the heavens and earth. Everything that you see is by him and for him. So you have that. And if you have that, then walk in it. And so then we move from, and part of the reason why I wrote the book, because I wrote 4 different books, Sammy.
Wow.
And didn't publish any of them because it was very technical in nature. And what I find is that people don't move forward because they lack the technical side. They don't move forward because they lack the faith, the belief system that they can do it, that they can operate on this level. And that was the reason why I wrote the book Absurd. And I wrote it in a parable format because it's not that people aren't smart enough. It's not that people don't know enough. It's that they don't have the faith to move forward in their purpose. When they get these ideas, pass them away, lock them up into bottles that this possibly couldn't be for me. And so it's amazing to let go and let God take control of your life and the success that you're having now. We know that individuals are listening and they're going to have roadblocks. What are some specific roadblocks that you think is out for on your journey to discovering your purpose? What are some specific roadblocks that our audience needs to watch out for?
I think since I'm a person of faith and I really try to I think honestly one of the biggest roadblocks is yourself. Like watch out for yourself trying to take the lead. Watch out for yourself trying to do this whole big epic endeavor and excluding God in the process.
Yeah.
That's the hugest thing. I promise you, that's the hugest thing that I have to deal with. God blessing you with something, but you failing to read the instructions, um, and make sure that you're actually operating correctly, whatever God blesses you with, and not having your faith level to a point where in the connection with God, which is only that's the only thing that's going to keep you in sync. Honestly, is that connection with God. Once you lose that, things will go awry because you can only take yourself so far.
Right.
Um, so the honestly the roadblocks is usually ourselves and ourself not wholeheartedly trusting God, because we say it, we read it, we talk about it, but in reality, do we really trust God like in the fullness of who He is, in His full majesty and His full glory and His full um, everything he is everything. So that whole thing right there, just being able to trust God beyond the everyday situations that may arise,
Yeah.
is I think the biggest stumbling block that I dealt with, because God is everything. So the more and more I can ease up now and trust God, is it's helping us the process so much more. And obviously there will be things that we go through in this life and things that we'll have to deal with in business,
Yeah.
and obstacles and things will come up. But our number one priority should always be to really trust God and to lean not to our own understanding, but really honestly in all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will direct your path. I mean, it's not just it's scripture. It's scripture that needs to be applied to our life, so we can then see the goodness of the Lord in this day,
Yeah.
because He wants us to. He wants us to see the goodness of Him in this day. But there's principles that need to be followed. There's things that we need to do. We have to discipline ourselves. We have to make sure that we're uh, set up for success and learn and self-taught and educate ourselves. Because I've learned that most millionaires are not even college educated. They're self-taught people. So a lot of times being an entrepreneur, you have to continuously um, train and teach yourself how to and really indulge in your own education, and really get yourself and I think the one of the other most important things too is to make sure that you are find something to make your heart happy when you have nothing. You know, even in that's God, of course, but working out and like swimming for me is one of those things that makes me, get my mind back focused and get to thinking about God again. So running, people run, people go see nice art or whatever, but you have to find some things that are not all super whatever to get your mind back right. Because I think once the enemy is able to penetrate your mind
Yeah.
and put that mirage up, those are those stumbling blocks that we feel are stumbling blocks are usually a mirage.
Yeah.
That's my new thing. It's usually a mirage just set up to
That's,
camouflage you from seeing the promises of God. And God is like, come on, don't look at that. It's just fake. Come on, I
yeah.
got you. And we're like standing there looking at this big catastrophe, like this is the end for us, and it's not. It's just the beginning. So I think trusting God through that process, and sometimes you just got to close your eyes
Mm.
and move and grab God's hand and just walk.
Yeah.
So those, I don't even know if that answered your question, Tim.
It does. It does. That real, you answered it and you gave us more. So that real.
Okay, so sorry.
See, I think that piece of uh, uh, find something to do when you're not when you're struggling, when you're not happy, when you're in that wilderness place of your life. Find something to put your hand to do. And so, like exercising, reading a book, taking a walk, and being in a routine of doing things like that is
Yeah.
helps you get through those, because those are temporary spots. And I
Hmm.
like it. I'm going to pick that up too. The mirage. These
Yeah.
temporary places are not real. And so
Not real.
build. You can't make long-lasting decisions on a place that's temporary. It's
Yep.
not going to be here forever. So what am I going to? Okay, I'm in this place. I recognize it's a mirage. I recognize that this and that is due. In lieu of getting stressed about it, I'm going to get work on my six pack.
Hey, there you go.
I'm
There
going
you
to read
go.
something that I don't know about. I'm going to learn something new. And
That's been so. When you're not prospering, you should work on being in good health. So,
right, that's
so
good.
when you're not when you're
Good.
not working a job or when you're not working a task, work
That's
on being in good health. So
that's
that's His will for our life. So we should
good.
be doing one or the other, one or
Good.
the other. So that's kind of what I've learned over this time to really, if I'm not investing, if I'm not going to a meeting or talking to work or working or whatever, I'm trying to work on my good health. So I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna eat right and how I'm gonna get to the gym to go swimming, and
Yeah.
those are those things keep me focused and keep me centered and in the right space with God. So everybody and every time somebody asks me to speak or something, I was like, I really don't got nothing to tell these people, but God did it.
Yeah.
That's all I really got to tell them.
Yeah.
So and I'm not gonna lie. I
Yeah.
can't lie. So it's if I tell you that I got up here and did this and did, I didn't do nothing.
Yeah.
Only thing I can tell you I did was trust in God.
Wow.
And I'm learning to do that more and more and more as I get older, as I go through this process. I'm learning to trust God, without a shadow of a doubt, as the old people used to say, more and more and more. And I think when we get to that pinnacle of trusting God, that's when He can unload everything that He has, for our life, which is phenomenal. If we all those things in your head are things; those are real things that God wants to do for our life. But we have to stretch out on Him, because you really don't have to do. You don't have to do a lot to obtain those things. How God? How am I going to do this? You're not. Your job is to trust God, so He can do what He needs to do. So that's what I'm learning, to just trust God and to not take His jobs upon myself, because I will kill myself trying to do God's job. So it's not even in my strength that I can't even, I don't even have the strength to do it. So
That's good. That's good.
so
That's
that's me, Tim.
okay. One last question for you. And this interview has been awesome. It's been very good. Um, there's people that's going to be listening to this interview, and they're going to question why me. I asked this to everyone at the end, and they're asking. They may be wherever they're looking at it. They're saying why me. In regards to purpose, they're comfortable. Life is not. They're not living to their full potential. They're up and coming. They're aspiring entrepreneurs, aspiring leaders, and they're asking why me. Why should I be the one to do this? And I liken it to Moses when God approached him. He appeared to Moses as a flame in a bush, and he said, he told him, "I want you to set my people free." And Moses said, who am I that I should go up?" And I think a lot of individuals are asking, "Who am I? Why should I? How can I achieve these great things knowing who I am?" If you look at Gideon, he was questioning God of, "I'm from the smallest tribe in Israel. Who am I that I should go and be a savior for Israel?" What would you tell those people that are saying, "Why me? Why am I able to do this? Why would God choose me to do for this specific task?" What would you tell those individuals?
I would say we've all probably asked that question before, and I even used to ask it too, and sometimes still now, like, God, why am I here? I'm not I'm not educated like these people. I don't know why would they ask me to be on this panel, or why would they ask me? It just don't even make sense, But God has a plan for our life, and He has destiny and different goals that He wants to accomplish with our life, and God has purpose. So when I ask why to God, God response to me is to stop wasting time asking me why and to do what I actually do. So He doesn't give me a chance to really dwell on that too long.
Yeah.
Because I think we there's no rhyme or reason to what God has for us as individuals. And so like you mentioned before, his ways are higher than ours and his thoughts are higher than ours. There's somebody in your family, in your surroundings that needs to be touched by you being successful or you being wherever you need to be. God is raising you up to help people. It's not about you all the time. It's not about you
Right.
any of the time, really. It's about the purpose. It's about the people that need to see God through you, and the people that need to see God elevate you so they can know that it's possible. Because everybody, you're the one who knows it without seeing it happen. Like me, I said, God used, God showed me that you're going to do it without seeing it being done,
Yeah.
so that people can see it being done, so they can then obtain it. Because, but I need you to have so much faith and so much trust in me that you'll get through these barriers and you'll do these things without actually seeing it being done. Because
Right.
people will be ask me all the time, "Did you go to this thing or did you go to this training?" And I was like, "Well, no." And they'll start talking to me, and I'll be like, "You mean this?" And I was like, they were like, "How did you know?" I was like, God is training me to be where I need to be, because he knows where we're gonna be, end up, and all this stuff. So I try not to. This may seem weird, but I don't look at a lot of um, different things that people do or trainings and different things like that, because I know God is setting me up for something. And at the end of it all, my only response is gonna be, God did this.
Yeah.
Like, I can't even tell you. They be like, how did you know to do this? Because I asked God. How did you know to do this? And I know people say it ain't all God. It is all God. The
Yeah.
reason why we're here is because we need God to. We're trying to all make it to heaven, and we're all trying to make uh, as much impact on this earth as possible, and win as many people as we can to Christ as possible on this earth before we all go to heaven.
Yeah.
So we have to make sure that we're purpose driven and always Christ centered, and making sure that we have God as our magnifying glass in this journey. Business, faith, whether you're a preacher or whatever, we preaching with our lives. Tim, you preaching with your life. So the more you are successful, the more people can see God through you. The more I'm successful, the more people can see God through us. So this is all a journey of our faith. And God was showing me that the other day, how people, people go to church, they shout, they do all this stuff. He was like, but the ultimate praise I get is out of your life, how you walk through life. And he was like, um, you'll see who really like praises me, because you'll see their life progressing. You'll see they're walking in faith. They're walking, like you said, how does a millionaire walk? How does a man of God walk? A man of God walk he's a wealthy person. He's walking with integrity. He's walking with his head up, not because he's cocky, but because he's trusting God. Um, and God was just saying that, he was even telling me when I was in Africa that how people of God, Christians, don't trust him wholeheartedly. And he was like, just watch them, because they will walk differently. If they trusted me, they will walk different. Their whole mannerism, their whole being would be different. If they trust me, they will talk to you a certain different way. And I was like, wow, that's deep. But he was like, that's all it is. It's not why me. It's I'm grateful that God got me doing what I'm doing. I'm grateful that I'm in a place where I can hear God to do what I'm supposed to be doing. So that turns around after thinking about it for a while. Not why me, but thank you, Jesus. Thank you that I'm in a mind space, that I have enough right mind to listen to you, to be where I am or to do what I'm doing. So um, why me? Why not you?
Yeah.
Who else? Because there's people. Why you? Because there's people around you that need Christ. There's people around you that need a symbol of hope. There's people around you that need direction to the cross. That's why because God sees there's people around you, the influence that you have or that you will have around you to influence people to the cross. That's why because you will, God trusts that you will lead them to Him. So that's why He chooses certain people to do certain things, because He trusts that we will lead them to Him,
Yeah.
and not take them for our own vainglory and have our own posses, but we'll lead people to Christ. So, and that's honestly my goal, is to lead people to Christ one sandwich at a time.
Yes. That's good. That's good. Well, Sammy, thank you. So what's your address at Sammy's Avenue Eatery in
Sammy's Avenue Sammy's Avenue Eatery on West Broadway, 1101 West Broadway Avenue North. That's in Minneapolis, Minnesota, 55411. Right in the hood.
Okay.
Right in the hood.
All right. And then you can have it delivered too, right?
Yes, we have delivery service through DoorDash. You can do Grubhub or Bike Squad. Hit them up. And if you do your first delivery, all of them will do it for free, your first one. So if it's your first time doing those services, your first one is on them. It's on them.
Well, we got to do this again. This is a lot of wisdom, and
Absolutely.
I appreciate you taking the time to do it. I'm gonna let you get back to your day off and enjoy this rest, and get back to it.
All right. Thank you so much, Tim, for thinking about me. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Sammy.
All right. Be blessed, sir.
All right, you too.